Mr. Shi?
Here.
Mrs. Maroney?
Here.
Mrs. Madiker?
Here.
Mr. Brescher?
Here.
Mrs. Patel?
Here.
All present but Mrs. Ward, Mr. Errico, Mrs. Pang, and Mrs. DeStefano.
Oh, she's coming.
Oh, here comes Mr. Ward, okay. I'll mark her present. Okay.
Opening statement. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Edison Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Board of Education administrative offices. Copies of these notices were sent to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger on January 8th and 24th of 2018. The public may participate at regular meetings in accordance with the bylaws and the applicable state regulations. So, as most...
I'm here.
Yeah, give me a minute to hook it up. So as you're aware, in the summer, we combine the two meetings in one session, the caucus meeting and the public meeting. So for today, we're just going to have the caucus meeting first. We go to the closed session. We hope to come back in about an hour. If we need more time, I will come out and let you guys know. Okay? So Dan?
Okay. Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be resolved by the Board of Education of the Township of Edison as follows. 1, the public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the herein specified subject matters. 2, the general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Attorney-client privilege discussion regarding student issues, contracts for interim superintendents, employee matters, litigation brought on by former employees, M&M construction litigation. Under personnel, we'll be discussing resignations and terminations, appointments, leaves of absences, changes of status, longevity, substitute staff, middle school team leaders, extended school year, freshman orientation, summer sports camps, and coaching appointments. 3, it is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists, and 4, this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Can I have a motion? Okay, Mrs. Maroney, second. Okay, Mr. Brescher?
Mrs. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
All yes.
All right, about an hour.
To the
All
library,
right,
went
can I
to the
have a
pool.
motion to reconvene?
Oh.
Mr. Brescher, Mr. Patel?
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Pang?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Here.
Mrs. Maroney?
Here.
Mr. Shi?
Here.
Okay, we're back into open session.
So if you look at your agenda item, we have a public comments before the resolutions. So I'm gonna have a motion to move the public comments a little bit later. So let's go through all the items. Then we can have the public comments on the resolutions only. Then we have another opportunity for public to make comments. So right now, if you make the public comments, we have not explained some of the stuff yet. So let's explain these stuff first, the resolution first, then public comments on these resolutions. Okay? Understood? Huh? After the public comments vote, we'll vote on it. Okay? So now, can I have a motion to move the public
Help me
comments,
out if I don't hear
public
it.
comment
This isn't
session
too
to
clear.
the end of the agenda after finance? Do I have a motion? Mr. Brescher, second. Mrs. Penn?
Okay, Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Here.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So let's just go through these items. So personnel, you already have the report. I think you can read it. There are a couple other supplemental stuff regarding to the personnel you have in your hand. Okay. So since Dr. O'Malley's not here, Dan's going to cover some of the administrative items that's on the agenda.
Okay, as Mr. Shi said, you have the personnel report and the resolutions that we added to the end of that, which you also have a copy of. We have a settlement agreement for the Mr. Hart case. We have a special education settlement agreement for a student named, with initials AA. And we have the resolution to appoint Mrs. Cataldi, our current Director of Human Resources, as our interim superintendent, acting interim superintendent, until our interim superintendent actually can start, which we anticipate is going to be somewhere around the 20th of August. So those three are also part of the agenda.
You have it, so we don't need to read it, right?
Right,
You have
they have
enough
all that stuff, correct.
Okay. So
Okay.
let's go through the administrations, yeah.
So under administration, the first resolution is the 2017-2018 CUSAC, a statement of assurance, which we're required to do every year. Every 5 years, the state county office through the state, as their agent comes in and does a CUSAC review of the district, which includes facilities, finance, curriculum, and all that kind of stuff. And every year, we have to give them, by resolution, a statement of assurance that we're in compliance with that CUSAC report. And that's what we're going to be doing with the agenda, first item on the agenda. Second item, with the departure of Mr. Stromsland, we have a vacancy in some appointments that we would generally have had put in place by now. Being that we have put Mr. Taylor, Kenneth Taylor, as our acting Director of Buildings and Grounds, we'd like to put him in at least temporarily until we find a full-time person, unless he gets the full-time job. The first one's the indoor air quality designee for 2018-2019. He is certified in that one, so it's not an issue at all. The second one we'd like to appoint him as is the Hazardous Communications Officer, which used to be called the Right to Know Act. He also, that one doesn't need a qualification, but we'd like to appoint him as that one. The one he does not have at this point in time, but he is authorized to be appointed this until he gets the registration, is the Integrated Pest Management Coordinator. He is going to be signed up for he's registering for the fall registration to get that certification, so we'll be all set to go, and he's already taken care of signing up for that. The next item on here is the ratification of the Edison Township Transportation Association contract. Our drivers and bus aides have never been unionized before. They did file for a union last
Moving
year.
right along.
And they did get approval.
We're up here already.
We negotiated for 2 years with them. We finally came up with a settlement agreement that we reviewed in closed session. We'd like to ratify that contract. They already have ratified. This one goes back, because we've been negotiating for 2 years, goes back to July of 17, and it's going to go through June of 20. Okay, so we'd like to have that ratified tonight if we could, and then we can start actually abiding by that contract, because right now the contract's not in place, and they don't really have a contract at this point. But being they're 10-month people, it won't really take effect till September for the terms. The next one is for the ratification of the Edison Public Schools Custodian Maintenance Association contract. This is the one, if you remember, last time we negotiated, it took 3 years to get it done. I'm happy to say this one went a lot better. They got basically the same increase that the teachers received. They gave us the same givebacks the teachers gave us. So we're very happy with the settlement agreement. They already ratified, and as soon as we ratify, we're pretty much ready for them until 2021. We did have a few language changes, but minimal language changes, so we were very satisfied, and I think they were also, since they did ratify. The next item under co-curricular, these are co-curricular programs for 2018-19. These are pretty much standard from the previous couple of years we've had. You have a listing of all of the different co-curricular appointments we have and all co-curricular activities, and also the athletic programs that we have currently. And these are also listed in the teacher's contract for the coaches for these kind of things. So we'd like to have those approved also. The next item is a listing or approval of our program of instruction for next year. As we do every year, you'll see that the instructional components of kindergarten through 5th grade are all listed here. We also have it for the middle school program and the high school program, and we'd like to have that approved also Monday night. Or not Monday night, tonight. Actually, tonight, we're not doing
That's why you're going through them.
Yes, yes.
I'm not coming back Monday.
Yeah, I'm so used to Monday nights. All right, next is approval of the school hours. School hours are going to be same as they were last year, no changes on that, but we do have the board approve those annually, so we'd like to have that done tonight also. The next item is the field trip approval. We have 2 field trips, one for FCCLA, going to be funded through the FCCLA grant. It's for 4 students and 1 advisor, no cost to the district. And we also have another one for Herbert Hoover, 48 students and 5 advisors. Again, no cost to the district at all. It's being raised by by students, by fundraising, or by the parents. Next item is the listing of our professional development documentation we have, and you'll note that there's quite a few that are to be funded by the grants. Between Title I and IDEA, a lot of these different professional development courses are being funded by federal grants. We do have a few that are being funded through professional development, which is our budget. We'd like to have those approved tonight also. Next item is our added district placements for the special education. These are fairly minimal ones, as you can see. There's only one fairly sizable one, which is to New Road School for $62,000. Otherwise, they're very small. We do have one residential placement into the Laurie Haven Group Home. This one happens to be for state-responsible students, so we will be reimbursed by the state for all the costs for this student to go to CPC High School. Next item is under special education. We are obviously still trying to bring as many special ed kids as we can back to the district. We have 9 new programs that we want to bring into the district this year. Actually, we have 4 going to Lincoln School, 4 going to Marshall School, and those are going to be in the trailers we just put out there, and they're very close to being completed. We'll have those ready for September, and we have 1 additional one going to J.P. Stevens. It's an autistic program. Next item. Now we're under finance. Under our investment report for the month of June, we received interest in an amount of $26,786 for a total for the year, which is a lot more than I was anticipating, $266,491 in total interest for the year. So that was pretty good. The next resolution is a transfer. This is for the end of May, and this is almost cleans us up for the year to make everything in the black, except I do have 2 additional lines that I know are going to be a problem. Related services, which we already been talking about, that's special education. Those are for the related services we provide to special education students. And also transportation for the Ed Services Commission. Those are also special ed students. That number well exceeded the amount of money we had in the budget. So I know that next month I will be transferring into at least those 2 lines an additional amount of money that will cover us for the rest of the year, but we have to close out, obviously, for the month of June. But this transfer does cover most of the problems we had during the year, and most of the big ones, as I said, are the special services lines that you're seeing on here. And you also notice from the FROMs, once we canceled the final PO for payroll, after the payroll is paid, that's where it shows up where some of the people may have left early in the year, and I ended up with some balances in some salary accounts, and I was able to transfer some of those salary balances against some of these over expenditures in the special ed line. Item number 2, if you remember last month, we appropriated $750,000 out of our capital reserve for the trailers. We thought that was going to be enough, but there's a lot of other things that came up that we had to fund. So we'd like to appropriate another $100,000 out of the capital reserve, which brings it to the original $850,000, which is what Mr. Stromson gave me originally. But because we had saved some money on the trailers themselves and the installation of that, we thought we'd be able to get away with $750,000, but unfortunately it's going to run close to that $850,000 number. So I'd like to approve a transfer for the trailers of $100,000. Number 3, we received, this is great news for us, we received finally some meaningful money from the state. We got an initial $3.5 million in state aid just recently. We have to decide what we're going to do with it, and I discussed it with Mr. Shee, and I know the board is also, as you've heard many, many times, we're trying to build up a balance. Mr. Shee calls it a bucket, but it's actually our capital reserve account for some additions on our schools, which we need desperately. And this $3.5 million would help a lot towards an addition to a school. So we'd like to make a recommendation to, or have a resolution to put that $3.5 million towards our capital reserve.
More money for the overcrowding bucket.
Right, right. Item number 4, we wanted to bid. If you remember last month, we had some bids for transportation, and we awarded about a third of them, and the rest of them came in much, much higher than I anticipated, way more than I was willing to pay. And in a lot of the cases, we got no bids at all. So we wanted to bid again, and this time, I'm happy to say, we got a bid on every one of them, and the numbers did come down quite a bit. I think the first time they were trying to throw numbers up there and was just hoping for the best, but when I threw them out, they knew that at that point in time that if they didn't come back with better numbers this time, I was going to give them to the Service Commission and let them find the transportation for us, because I wasn't going to pay $400 and $500 a day. That was ridiculous. So these are the numbers at the low bidder on every single one, and I'm happy to say that we have every single route right now covered. Now, of course, we don't know what the enrollment's going to be, so we may need additional routes somewhere down the road as soon as we get all these enrollments in. But at this point in time, right now, the necessary busing that we anticipate are now covered 100% by either our staff or by outside contractors.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 5, we bid this back in 2016, and we can renew for 2 more years for miscellaneous printing. Courier Printing said that they would renew for another year with no increase in the cost, and they did a nice job for us this year. So I'm recommending we just renew it for 1 more year. Number 6. Item number 6 and right through to number 13. Remember last month we had a number of bids from EdData for a lot of our supplies we buy every year. They're our bidding consultants. They go out to bid. There's 273 districts that cooperate in their bidding process. So we put all of our numbers together, huge numbers of volumes. So we get really good numbers on our equipment and our supplies. So we'd like to award number 6, which is audiovisual supplies. Number 7, fine art supplies, general supplies, health and trainer supplies, library supplies, lumber supplies, office and computer supplies, technology supplies. Those are all going to the lowest bidder based on that EdData bid. So we're thankful for that, because we save a lot of money by doing that as opposed to state contract, going to a state contract vendor. Item number 14, we went out for an RFP for architect for the modular classrooms that we put in our budget, $2.5 million for modular classrooms to go on the FDR building for special education. We had gotten a proposal from our current architect. We thought it was on the high side. We went out again. We narrowed it down to 2, and we interviewed the 2, and we decided to go with USA Architects for this. They would do the project for no more than 6% of the project cost, and on top of that, they said they would upgrade our long-range facility plans at no cost to us. We had a proposal from other architects for over $100,000 to do that. They said they'll do it for nothing. Kind of sold us on them. And we've had them before. They did a pretty decent job for us in the past, so we had no qualms about giving it to them. So we'd like to get that awarded so we can get this modular classroom project going. Item number 15, every year we have homeless students in Edison. This not only includes people who don't have a home, but it also might move in with a relative because out of necessity. We submit to the state every year a number of students that we identify as homeless, and they come back and forth with us and say, want more information about it. And bottom line is, we ended up getting $1,085,362 for the homeless students from last year, which is $93,000 less than last year, but it's still $1 million that we were hoping we were going to get. So that really helps quite a bit. Item number 6, non-public nursing. Every single year, the state gives me money that goes only to the non-public schools. The students in the non-public schools are entitled to basically the same benefits that the public school students get. The state gives us the money. We have to handle it. We have to process the purchase orders, but we don't get any of it, and we can't even take a fee for our work on it. But they gave us this year for non-public nursing $205,349. Last year we got $214, so it was down about $9,000. Textbook money this year they gave us $111,126. Last year it was $119, so we're down about $8,000. But again, this doesn't cost us anything. This is money that strictly goes to the non-public schools. We actually allow the Ed Service Commission to do all this work for us, and they can take their fee out of those funds. So it saves us from having to do all that extra work ourselves. Non-public textbook aid, we got $74,916. Last year we got $80,000, so it just went down about another $5,000. Non-public security aid, this year we got $158,000. Last year we got $165,000, so it went down about $7,000. So in each case we got a little bit less in the non-public monies, it's ranging between $5,000 and $8,000 total. Number 20, this is the insurance premiums for the Cigna health benefits that we have, which is a reduction from last year. If you remember, we discussed this a number of times. These are the actual rates that we've gotten approval for from Cigna, and it is lower than last year's. I'm sure many of the employees have seen a reduction in their contributions because of it. If they haven't yet, they will, because when they start getting paid in September, but the 12-month people, I'm sure, have seen it already. The only thing that you don't see on here is the Dependent 31. Somebody just asked me about that, and I will get that to that person. But if anybody has a dependent that's over 26 who cannot no longer be on your policy, up to 31, they're allowed to stay on our policy also, similar to COBRA, but they have to pay the fee for the full rate of the coverage that they take. Number 21 is the insurance premiums for our risk. And then you see it's $2,240,000, which is a reduction of about $200,000 from our previous policy. So we're happy about that. Number 22, every year the state requires us to submit to them dual-use classrooms and substandard classrooms. So we have to ask the teachers and the principals, can you give us a list of any room you're going to be using? And when I talk dual use, I don't mean, the first period speech and the second period something else. I'm talking about rooms where they actually put up either a movable wall or even a bookcase, and you have a small group instruction on one side of the room and one on the other. But because of our overcrowding issue, in a lot of cases, that's the only way we can actually handle these students. We don't have the extra rooms. So we do have a number of them, as you can see on number 22. These are all classes that in these different schools where will be using dual use, including the stage on at Thomas Jefferson. They actually have a class on the stage, and it's so until we get some additional classroom space, we're going to be forced to do more and more of this dual use. Number 23 is the other part of it, substandard rooms. We have to also get approval from that. In many cases, unless they already approved it or looked at it last year and gave us approval, if you have new ones, the county office sends the county BA out to us, investigates our substandard rooms and our dual-use rooms to make sure we're in compliance with code. And if you could get a variance on certain things, but not everything. In this case, everything on here was listed last year. It's nothing new, except for the new trailers we got in Lincoln and we have at Marshall. And as soon as we're completed with those, they will come out and investigate those to just make sure they're in compliance. I know they are, but we just need written approval from the county office to use those. So those are, you'll see it on number 23, everything on there is trailers. Our substandard rooms are trailers, and we have them in a number of schools, and hopefully we can start getting rid of them if we get some additions put on schools, but until we do, and as long as our enrollment keeps it growing, we're going to need this additional space, and the trailers are the least expensive way to go. Until we get these modulars, that helps somewhat, but we don't have those ready, and they won't be ready for a few months yet. Item number 24, we were very happy to hear that we have parents of a student, a third grader at the Woodbrook School, who's donating $5,000 to Woodbrook School for the use of educational supplies. They weren't even specific about what they want to use it for. They said, use it for educational supplies. I just appreciate the fact you gave my kids a great education. So we want to really thank them, and we will send them a letter and a copy of the resolution. And you'll also note that one of the last things he gave you today, on the bottom, there was another resolution for a donation to Woodrow Wilson School, same family, another $5,000. So we got a family who gave us $5,000 for Woodbrook and $5,000 for Woodrow Wilson. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's the first time I see that. Item number 25, as I was talking about the non-public monies we're getting this year, these are non-public funds from last year. We have to approve the POs before the non-public schools can get these funds submitted to them. This is from the Ed Service Commission. They handle it for us. We have two listed here for the non-public security for Plaza's Child Care and St. Helena's, and also for non-public technology. We have two, one for Lower Hartridge and another one for Plaza Child Care. We have to approve those before we can actually have the send those purchase orders out. Item number 27 is the obsolete items that we receive from the schools, and at the end of the year, that's when you start getting a lot more, mostly in the area of textbooks. Some of these textbooks are 20 years old or better, and some of the equipment that has kind of been obsoleted. So we want to declare that stuff obsolete so we have that disposed of. Number 28 is the bill list for June. This is always the biggest one of the year because we always run off all of the checks for everything for June, and we don't really close the books out until the third week in July. So it's usually a big, like last month was 23 million. This one's 28 million because we're trying to close out and get rid of most of the payables that are due and payable by the end of June. So the total amount is 28,640,517, and each one of the board members received a copy of the bill list. And a few of them have already called me about some of the things on there, but if you have any questions on it, please give me a call. Number 29 is the transportation report. This is for the next year. These are the ones that we renewed from the last year's bid, and we were happy to get these things at 1%. The state said we could go up 1.51%. We started off with 0. We couldn't get any bites on it, so we got them, offered them 1, and pretty much told them that's as high as we're going, and they took it. So we were very happy about that. Number 30, these are the ones we just handed out when we came back out. Non-public transportation costs. We finally received that. We just got it on Friday. That's why it wasn't on the original agenda. We had $234,790 for reimbursement from the state on the non-public transportation. This is the transportation we provide to non-public students or the aid in lieu of that we provide to those non-public students. This isn't even half of what we spend, but we're lucky to get anything, so I'm happy to get the $234,000. Last year we got 160, so it is a little bit higher, but that's because we have so many more students that are being transported or getting aid in lieu of. So the number did go up, but it's not because they're being generous to us. We just have that many more students that we're transporting. Number 31 is extraordinary aid. Now this one is another one that we go for every year, and actually this one's 126,000 higher than last year also. The state reimburses us for special ed monies for in-house students over 40,000 and out-of-district students over 55,000. But the state has a pool of money, and that, depending on how much everybody sends into them, they give you a percentage of it. And I just worked up some numbers that I shared with Mr. Shee about our special ed costs district-wide. It costs us over $55 million for our special ed programs. That's include transportation, teachers, paras, out-of-district tuition, all that stuff. And we're getting about $2 million back. So, I mean, it's a drop in the bucket, but we also still get state aid. We're getting about $8 million in state aid. So between the two, we're getting about $10 million of our 55. So it's not as much as I'd like, but but I'll take it. And the last item is the one I mentioned earlier, Woodrow Wilson, another $5,000 from that same family as a donation to the school. So we were very happy about that, obviously. And I believe that completes my report, Mr. Shee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shue.
I had a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I think you probably might not be able to answer. It's about the program of instruction, and I just wanted to find out if there is any change from last year. No change. Okay, thanks.
The summer
Yeah,
hours.
Deborah, you want to?
Oh, that's right,
She said
yes.
there's no
Yes.
change.
Okay.
So other than the program of studies that you approved at the high school?
Okay. Okay.
There was one other thing that came in last minute. A recommendation to, the summer hours were going to end the week before the end of the month. There was a recommendation to continue that through the 27th of August and to close on the 31st. This is similar to what we did last year, if you remember. We extended summer hours one more week and closed the Friday before Labor Day. So we'd like to do the same thing. So if the board would be okay with that, we'd like to approve that tonight also. All right? Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shue. Any questions from the board members on any of these items that we just went through? See none. Open up for public comments, the resolutions only. Yes, 6 minutes.
Is it okay if I move these brownies? I'll put them underneath. Oh, you want to?
Just one more thing. One more thing. I apologize. Today, Ramon is not here. Okay, so it looks a little bit different than Ramon.
A little more hair.
So Shayna Down is sitting in for Ramon for today's meeting. Welcome to our district.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Matt Revnak, First Vice President ETA, 2 Ethel Road. On page 3 under Co-Curricular Programs.
Did you see this?
Was the Falgoonies?
It's listed that the activities shall be scheduled after school from 3:05 to 3:55
Did you see
p.m.
it?
from October 1st through June 30th. This actually stemmed from
Just
a
was wondering if
grievance
you saw it.
from approximately 2 years ago, which actually became an unfair labor practice, where there was an issue with clubs and specified times. And basically, at the PERC hearing, we did agree to try to resolve this in negotiations. We did, that it was a 21-hour per year, not any specified time frame in our contract, and that was part of the argument. The prior contract, what we settled last year, there were no specified times. And when the principal tried to put specific times, that's what the grievance and unfair labor practice revolved around. So again, we're seeing specified times here. And I just want to make a mention to it, and part of our discussion, even negotiation, for those of you that were on the team, if you remember, there are actually some clubs that take place, for example, in the morning before school. Sometimes 3:05 to 3:55 isn't necessarily conducive. I see the bus specified time, the late bus, that's fine, because that just is, telling people when the late bus will, leave. But the specified time goes against what our agreement was. And I hope you'll reconsider and, remove that before you take a vote on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Yes.
Jeff Bowden, 2 Ethel Road, ETA President. Regarding the summer hours, for the last week of August, will that include the personnel returning in the schools for that week also?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay. For the summer hours,
Yes.
will that include personnel returning to the schools for that last week?
What's the practice before?
Well, we discussed it with Dr. O'Malley. I don't know how many years you've been doing the summer hours. We discussed it the 1 year, and I believe he said no, they had all summer off. But I don't know what was done last summer. But truthfully, when some of the schools leaving at 3 o'clock and some of the secretaries coming in for their 10.5-month positions are staying later, it does lead to some awkwardness. So I'd ask that you consider that for the school staff that are returning the last week of August.
You talking about the 31st? The day we're going to close? Is that what you're talking about?
They were going to close.
They were,
Right.
yeah, I think,
No, the last week, the 26th.
right. Okay.
There are secretaries that are returning during
Yes.
that time for
Okay.
regular school hours.
Right.
These summer hours, who are they reflected for? Are they just for central office staff? Are they?
I would think they should be for everybody myself.
It's
I
everybody.
just want to point that out, that at 1 year there was a problem, so I just want to be clear,
Oh.
because I know I'm going to get questions as soon as you approve this from secretaries returning for that week.
So
And-
we'll have Mrs.
Okay.
Contaldi explain it. Is that, any other questions on that? You done?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Margaret, and you? Go to the podium, they can't hear. I know you don't want to. It's whatever.
Margaret Contaldi, Director of Human Resources, 312 Pearson Avenue. I believe it was my intention, as I was explaining it to Mr. Mashad and then in executive session, that it would be for all employees of the district. That was the intention.
Clear? Okay. All right. Any other comments for resolutions? Yes, go ahead.
Elizabeth Conway, I just have a question on the establishment of the new programs.
Address, please.
Elizabeth Conway, 20 Netherwood Circle.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm just questioning this. And the establishment of the 8 new classrooms. And did I hear right that these classrooms are going to be in trailers?
Yes, we have special ed trailers we put at Lincoln and Marshall.
And these trailers have bathrooms and sinks and
Yes,
all
yes.
those
Yes, they do.
facilities?
Yes.
And they will be considered approved? They won't be substandard classrooms?
They're still substandard classrooms, no matter, even after they approve them, they're still considered substandard because they're not a regular classroom. But they will be approved substandard classrooms by the state.
But it will have all the needs for the special ed students?
Absolutely.
They're brand new, and actually, the original plan is to put them for the FDR. But since we are building the modular classrooms in FDR, we are temporarily putting them in those two schools. Once we have the modular classrooms, all these kids will be moving back. These 4 classrooms will be used by those 2 schools. Other comments? Yes.
Carol Badowski, 39 Jonathan Drive. First, congratulations to Margaret Contaldi. I've heard only excellent things about her so far, but I'm a little confused about the resolution because of the word successor superintendent. Does this mean you are no longer going the route of interim superintendent? You are going to go directly to a permanent superintendent?
No, that's not correct. The interim superintendent, because his current contract obligation with the previous school district, he cannot start on August 3rd.
Okay, that was my
So
only...
between August 3rd and the time he comes on board, we need a superintendent in the school district. And Margaret is the acting superintendent for that short period of time.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, but I wanted to be sure because of the use of successor superintendent, not the interim superintendent being able to start. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. See none? So let's go ahead with the approval of these resolutions. It's a little bit complicated today, so I will split things up a little bit. So first, can I have a motion just for the personnel report? The personnel report you guys all have. Can I have a motion just for the personnel report? Mr. Brescher? Okay. Mr. DeStefano?
Mrs. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
What did I
Yes.
vote on?
Oh, yes.
I can't
The
hear that.
second
Just
is,
the person.
Oh.
you all have it. It's the settlement of Mr. Hart's case. Okay? We'll do that separately. Do I have a motion for that? Yes? Okay. Mrs. Patel, Mrs. Maduka.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
I abstain.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Abstain.
Mrs. Maroney?
Abstain?
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
Okay, so carried.
Okay. So the next is a settlement for student AA and Margaret Contaldi as the acting superintendent. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Brescher, Mrs. Maroney.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
All right. So this is a little easier. Okay, so next up is the approval of the administration items. That means the QSET state assessment, indoor air quality designee, hazardous communication officer, integrated pest control coordinator, the transportation, ratification, the transportation contract, and the custodian contract. So do I have a motion for that? Okay, Mr. Brescher, Mrs. Maroney.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Now, do we want to make a change on that? Co-curricular?
Yeah, so we're gonna make a change on the co-curriculum, just as you said, about the starting to go with the, to match the contract, okay? So, we're gonna still vote on this, but promising that we're gonna change the wording to match the contract. Is that
The 21
okay?
hours? The 21 hours for clubs, correct? Is that what you're looking for? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just that the,
We'll revise that.
yeah, just that the specified times here are non-existent, the 21 hours.
Okay.
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 Yeah, so we'll strike that period and we can still vote on it. We'll put 21 hours in there. That fair? Okay. All right. So we're gonna vote on the curriculum and instruction, which includes the co-curriculum, the approval of program instructions for the next school year, the school hours and field trips, and the professional development. Do I have a motion on that? Okay, Mr. Brescher. Mr. Taduka.
When I was in
I can
school,
look at this way next time.
It was lunch,
I was
second?
never that quick in school.
Okay.
That's that vote, you know?
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So next up, the pupil services, out-of-district placement, approval of establishment of the new programs, the finance resolutions, plus the new summer hour resolution, right? So do I have a motion for that? Okay, Mr. Madiker, Mr. DeStefano.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ward?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, upcoming meetings, as we are still in the summer. So our next public meeting is on August 27th. Again, this is a stacked meeting. We're gonna go through the closed session and caucus meeting first, and the advertised meeting is at 7 o'clock. I hope we're gonna start on time. If we don't, I'll come out and just let you guys know, all right? So next up, we have two committee reports, Finance and Facility. Mr. Brescher?
The Finance and Facilities Committee, we met on 7/10/18 at 4 p.m. at the Education Center. In attendance was Richard Brescher, Jerry Shi, Teresa Ward, Dan Michaud, Rich Pepe, and Ken Taylor. The committee interviewed representatives from architectural firms of EI Associates and USA Architects to discuss their proposals for the new construction of the modular classrooms at the FDR building, including construction observation services and updating the district's long-range facilities plan. We also discussed the need to replace a 1950s original steam boiler at Lincoln School. We reviewed a proposal from Allied Boiler, who had won the district's bid for the boiler and repairs and cleaning, but are requesting additional quotes be obtained to compare pricing and also look into possibly two smaller boilers. The committee also discussed the appointment of Ken Taylor, the District Manager of Custodial Operations and Energy Management, as the Acting Director of Building and Grounds to fill in for the vacancy left by the departure of the District of Plant Operations and Maintenance. And the meeting was adjourned at 5:45 p.m.
Thank you. So the next up is the Township Liaison Committee, and Ralph is not here, so I'll just go through this. We had the liaison meeting on July 12th at 7 p.m. at the municipal complex. In attendance from the district side, it's myself, Mr. Brescher, Paul DeStefano, Dan Michaud. And on the township, we have Councilman Bob Deal and Councilman Lenny Sandowski. And Melissa Porstein, the Edison Township Administrator of Policy and Strategy Initiatives, also in attendance. And also Mahesh Bhagia, Special Assistant to the Mayor, was there as well. The topic discussed by the committee included tax levy payments from the township to the Board of Education. Due to the continued overcrowding schools, the committee discussed the need for new schools or additions to existing schools and method to cover the cost. The use of pilot programs and the revenue sharing possibility, school security, and the proposed use of retired police officers, various shared services that benefit the township, the Board of Education, and the taxpayers. The administration of the township existing latchkey program. We have set up a tentative date for the next meeting of September 20th at 7 p.m. The meeting was adjourned about 8:30 that day. Okay, so now we are open for public comments.
No, board members.
Oh, board member comments, I'm sorry. Yes, yes. Yes, Ms. Monroe.
Kind of long-winded. So we have now completed 3 days of training for teacher trainers for the impending beginning of the Wingman Program, which is, we now have 8 schools from Edison going to pilot the program in New Jersey. This is the program that was brought to us by Mr. Ian Hockley, whose little boy unfortunately was killed in the Sandy Hook shooting. And Mr. Hockley has devoted his whole life since that time to making the lives of children safer and better. This is the social emotional piece that the board feels is important in school safety moving forward. So we don't only want to put people with guns in our building to protect the children, we want to help the children respect each other and live better lives. Today, Margaret Contaldi, among others whom I'll mention, came in to watch the program for a little bit. And she remarked to the board before that she was absolutely in awe of Mr. Hockley, who could do something so amazing in view of what his life has been like since Dylan's death. I have a lot of thanks to give to people, and then I'll just give you a snapshot of what's gone on. So a deep thanks to Jerry Shee and the Board of Education for their continued support in allowing us to bring the program to Edison, and Mr. Shee has offered to make welcome members from other districts as well if they need training. I want to thank Deborah Gulak, Beninder Mahabir, who are the assistant superintendents who came in not just once but a couple of times, and Beninder actually participated in some activities today. They have made all the arrangements for the room that we've been using, for the food service to provide breakfast and lunch for all the people being trained. Thanks to Kathy Swayze, one of the special ed supervisors, for joining us today as well. Deep thanks to Dr. O'Malley and Mark Finkelstein of the Educational Services Commission, who really got the ball rolling with this way back in January when I first brought the idea to them. A special thanks to retired teachers Ellen Baxter, Claire Rafferty, and Rosemarie Quagliarello for volunteering. These people have given 4 days of their summer to be teacher trainers, and they have been amazing to work with. We have one more day of training with the second group of trainers tomorrow, and then next Tuesday and Wednesday we're bringing all of the trainers together for a final 2 days of training before we go out to teach the teachers what to do, and then we will be with them when we teach the children what to do. So in a nutshell for you, the Wingman program is a student-geared program. It's the kids will be teaching the kids. And this is a program to teach empathy, to help students identify adults whom they can trust and go to in case there is a problem in the school. It is to build school or improve school climate. And I can tell you that I've now gone through I've done all the trainings that we've had here, and all we do is laugh and have fun and remember what it's like to be children. And that is the most important component, because in order for this to be successful, the adults involved have to think like a kid. And then we have to be able to relate to the kids to teach them what to do moving forward. The way the program is designed is that the middle and high schools, and by the way, Edison High is one of the schools on board moving forward this year, and Herbert Hoover also. And Herbert Hoover will be our very first school that we're going to pilot with. So their programs will be designed by the teacher champions, they're called, the teachers who volunteer to help with this, and the students. And they get to design the activities based on the needs that the students feel the school has. Like, where are we not addressing every child's need in the building? Do we need some anti-bullying activities? Do we need some activities in how to deal with the stress in our lives? What do we need? So on the secondary level, the kids define the program. On the elementary level, the program is scripted so that it's much more across the board. Everybody is getting the same thing, because the little guys really aren't capable of identifying what's wrong in the school climate. And also, this will make it easier for them to implement. It has been, so far, a fantastic ride. I'm very excited to tell you that we now have about 10 school districts. We've been sought out by Sussex, school in Sussex, Essex County, Hunterdon County, and now Ocean County. And I foresee that this is going to be not just a New Jersey movement. They did start out in Connecticut 3 years ago, but this is going to go nationwide, the way I see it. And we were the first in New Jersey. So again, thank you to everybody. It's going to be a tough road. Nobody says this is going to be easy, but it's going to make a huge difference, and it's going to really make the lives of children so much happier and safer. Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, you're welcome. So any other board members? I just want to echo that I like to thank Mrs. Maroney for taking on this initiative. And the lead on this program. And I think, moving forward, it will have a very positive long-term effect to all the schools and the district that participate in this program. And I encourage all the principals and the staff to work with Mrs. Maroney and also the trainers to get familiar with this program, and it will go a long way. See now I have one more thing. I was hoping that Dr. O'Malley will be here today, that he has other arrangements. Today is his, next Tuesday is his last day in the district. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. O'Malley for the 7 years he has done for the district. I want to wish him the best of luck, and I hope that the district that he's going to is going to be as good as Edison School District 7 years down the road. Thank you. Any other board members? See none. Public comments. Yes.
Jeff Bowden, 2 Ethel Road, ETA President. A couple of months ago, when you're doing the administrator locations in elementary, do we still have 5 assistant principals in elementary?
We didn't have 5, we only have 3.
3?
And we have 5 supervisors.
3?
We have 3, we only have 3 assistant
Okay.
principals.
Can you repeat that? The people on the
Right, I was questioning the number of assistant principals in the elementary school. So Ms. Swayze, is she, what's her designation as?
She's supervisor.
Supervisor, okay. So my question is, last year Lincoln School had a half-time administrator and was split with another school. And then I noticed in the minutes that that administrator, Mr. Fazio, was moved to JMI full-time. And at this point, I'm just wondering the logic behind that move, as Lincoln School is much larger than JMI. Certainly, hearing tonight with all the new classrooms that are being opened up there, and additionally at Marshall, and having even spoken to certain administrators who are all wishing they had an assistant at the elementary, I just find it a little disturbing that we've taken someone as well respected as Ms. DeFazio, who's only been here a few years, and now stripped her from Lincoln School when the staff and the children relied so much on her expertise. And I would implore, I don't know if you saw that move that was made a couple months ago in your minutes or really thought about it, but I think it really did a disservice for Lincoln School. Thank you.
So I just want to cover this in general. So this issue of assistant principal has brought to the attention of the board. So my answer to that is we're looking for the new administration to come in to evaluate what the needs are for the entire school district. Then we can do a better assignment as to which school needs assistant principal, and if we need to have more headcount, we can look into the budget, whether we can afford or not. But before we actually go down to that route, I like to see the board like to see assessment of the needs in the whole district. And we're not ignoring this issue. We just need to have a better understanding what the needs are in which school. Yes.
Carol Badowski, 39 Jonathan Drive. I've been coming to board meetings for many years, and over these years, I have observed that the district sometimes has challenges in transitioning between superintendents. So I just have one more question. At the Board of Ed meeting on July 18th, you said that the full details of the interim superintendent's contract, such as the per diem salary in numbers, were not finalized, just that it would be the highest per diem allowed by law. We were told that these details would be voted on at tonight's meeting. Since you didn't vote on this monetary amount tonight, when will the Board of Ed vote on the actual salary for the interim superintendent and the contract? Because your next scheduled meeting date is August 27th, and you said he would start on the 20th of August. So I just wondered if you could clarify that.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question, so I'm going to let, that's why Shada's here to.
You must be psychic.
Okay, so I believe that you have previously voted on approval for an interim superintendent, Mr. Saxton. A final agreement has not been reached completely at this point. It also requires the approval of the Commissioner of Education as well as the county superintendent, and then it can be brought back before this board for final approval, and we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
So we just don't have.
So there could be another meeting scheduled prior to him starting, or can he start without approval?
That would largely depend on the approvals that we receive and the timing of those. So
Okay.
it's possible.
It's possible, yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, so at this point, we're waiting for various levels of approval. It's possible that the Mr. Saxton could commence working as you generally approved his appointment, and then the board could ratify on the 27th, or it's possible that you could hold a special meeting beforehand if you decided to approve it prior to the 20th.
Okay, thank you. It's just having seen what happens sometimes when we change superintendents in this district. It has been a little chaotic in the past, so I just want to make sure that we're staying on top of the details. Thank you.
Thank you. Other, yes.
A Elizabeth Conway, 20 Netherwood Circle. I just would like to follow up what Mrs. Badowski was saying. Is this salary per diem negotiable between the board and Mr. Saxton, or is this something that he will have to accept if he wants the job, if after the approvals of all your list?
I think I can answer that. So the salary in principle is limited by statute. There's a maximum amount. If you'd like to exceed that amount, you need to request approval from the Commissioner of Education. And the contract, the entirety of the contract needs to be approved by the county superintendent. Mr. Saxton or any individual for this position and the board can negotiate the exact per diem dollar amount.
And has any of this negotiations taken place already?
Yes.
And has he agreed? So you're not telling me the dollar figure, obviously, you're smiling.
No, I can't,
But at this point,
disclose
he
whether or
he has agreed to what you have offered, and now it's just getting the permission of,
At this point. We're finalizing that, yes.
so you haven't agreed fully with him? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
At this point, we can't discuss it because it's a personnel item, and the finalized number will be inappropriate to disclose at this point.
But that number will come out in public?
Correct.
Yes.
Beth Talke, 15 Midwood Avenue. At the last meeting, you said the interim would be like up to the max of what was allowed per the state, whatever, just arbitrarily, I don't know what it is, if it's $1,000. Now, if that was the case, why does it have to go before the county superintendent for approval? Because I thought that was only if it exceeded those amounts. And here we're being so budget conscious in this district to save money, why would we be breaking that cap?
So the county superintendent needs to approve all administrator contracts regardless of whether it's the superintendent, an assistant superintendent, et cetera. So they need to approve all the terms and conditions to ensure that they are compliant with law.
Okay, are we still following what we said last month, where we're going to keep it within the cap to the max of what was allowed, or are we exceeding that at this point?
At this point, I can't disclose the number. That's an item that hasn't been agreed upon between the parties. So it would be inappropriate for me to disclose it. Mr. Saxton hasn't been Rice and is not appearing here today, so we cannot discuss any of the particular terms or conditions of his employment.
Okay, so I hope as a citizen of this town and as a taxpayer, there is a special meeting if it does exceed what the cap is, so that the public has a chance to talk about it, being that lately, I do appreciate you guys have been, money conscious for the taxpayers and to get the best bang for our buck, that, for exceeding that amount. It's, it seems, I don't know, it just seems a little bit, I don't know if the right word is shady, but that we approved a contract for somebody and offer them, like, I'm not sure, that's not the proper word, I can't think of it right now, but just that you approved a contract with no money involved at the point, at that point, and now we as a public have really no say in it because the contract's already been offered.
Understood.
Well, I thought was the contract signed at this point? A contract between him getting a job here? Wasn't that at the last month's meeting? It was voted on a contract, but not
the last resolution authorized the board attorney to negotiate a contract with Mr. Saxton to bring it back with the appropriate approvals for ultimate approval by the board.
And was that approved, the contract?
No, we have not gotten a final contract, and it's not before the board for approval at this point.
Okay, so possibly Margaret could be interim superintendent for longer than those dates.
Well, we hope not.
That's correct.
We have an end date.
Okay. I don't mean like that.
Our goal is to have Mr. Saxton come on board as soon as possible. So,
but there's a great chance that we could be exceeding that cap.
Exceeding
the maximum cap per diem day that he gets paid.
I don't know how to answer that question. It's
Can-
if the,
Can I ask a question about that, Jerry? I think there was there's a maximum cap for the state of like 196,000, is it?
it's
But
191 plus you have one extra high school is $5,000 on top of that.
so it'd be 201,
So
but
it's 196 and change.
196. But then there's also an allowance for a
Merit,
merit pay.
yes.
You know, so at the end of the day, what you're talking about is right. If you added merit pay and all of that, can you tell us what that dollar amount would be?
Is it 3%?
So 3 point something, right, on merit pay?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I went to law school and not accounting.
Yeah.
But I think it tops out potentially for this district it being just over $200,000, which I believe is what your current superintendent,
215,
215 is what your current superintendent
the base pay.
is making.
Okay, and I just have a
Marco
question.
Valley's salary for next school year is 215, plus merit pay, I think they were like 3.3% for 3 quantitative goals.
Yep.
And by the law, you can have 2 more qualitative, 2
Merit
point
goals.
something percent on top of it.
So
Right?
it could be an additional 5.6%.
Yes.
Okay, but we'd be paying an interim the same that we would be paying a permanent superintendent. That just seems kind of
I can't
Odd.
disclose the
Okay.
details, but
potentially.
potentially, yes, but, you know, but right now, we can't disclose the details. I wish
Okay, and
I-
is that being
I wish-
fiscally responsible for an
Absolutely,
interim? Absolutely?
When you
Well-
hear the final number, you will see the board is very responsible for the taxpayers on this.
Okay, and I have a-
Just right now, I can't disclose, and I wish I can give you the numbers, but because the things are not finalized, I cannot give you. We all know the number.
And then I have one other question, because Margaret is graciously, I guess, acting superintendent in the meantime, so she's covering 2 positions, correct? Because she's still in charge. Is she being compensated fairly for that as well?
Yes.
Can I just?
Well,
I'd like
I
to
don't
just-
know if Ms. Cataldi has
Oh, I don't wanna
waived her
comment.
rights in order to have this discussion in public.
Right, I'm not.
Well,
looking
I'm
to
not
comment.
asking how much he's getting, but here, this person is doing 2 jobs, and she's familiar with our district and what's, the workings of
The
it,
answer is yes.
and she's, I would hope, getting compensated as, close to what this interim would be getting, and then why would we be paying more if she's capable of doing this job?
Can I, Jerry?
Yes.
I mean, I'm going to look at them as 2 separate issues. But on your first one with the superintendent, if you had a choice to take on all the responsibilities for our 17 schools and all of our students and all of our parents, and you look at the difference in what we pay a superintendent as opposed to what we pay a principal who watches 1 school, I still don't understand why anybody wants to be a superintendent of schools. No, it's not. I'm telling you, the difference in dollars after you take out what they actually take home, not what we're paying them and Uncle Sam takes his half. I'm saying that small difference from what we pay principals to what we pay a superintendent, it's a thankless job, to be perfectly honest with you.
Mr. Bretcher, I beg to disagree, because the interims are retired superintendents, so I'm sure they're getting a hefty pension on top of this
They get a-
$200,000 interim
You're absolutely
job?
right, but you know what you can't do is you can't say to somebody, because you receive a pension, that you should work for $50,000 a year and do a job like that. I mean, that job pays to do that position, irregardless of what you make, because if your parents left you a trust that allows you to make $1 million a year, you cannot say then that you should work for the school district and teach children for free. So you,
No,
you
I
can't use his
understand that,
pension as that. He's
but
getting paid to be a superintendent of schools, just like a regular, because he's retired, shouldn't change the work that he actually does. It shouldn't negate it. You know, he should give us the same amount of time and put forth the same effort as our permanent superintendent would. And their salaries of $200,000 or $210,000 are comparable with, you know, what our other staff basically receive to do one building.
And one other question, are the districts that he's coming from also this size and of this magnitude?
No.
So then, does he have the experience with a district this size?
We're not.
When we have somebody in-house who's familiar with the runnings of a district this size?
We're already past that. The board has appointed him as the interim superintendent. Let's just go from there.
Okay, but I'm just not sure if that was being responsible enough to give him a contract when we don't even know what the specifics of that contract were, that everything should have been done at once. You know, the money, the responsibilities, the entire contract, not offering him a contract, and then we'll let you know later, and the taxpayers, how much we're going to pay him.
I wouldn't put it that way, but.
Well, that's how it
No.
appears to a taxpayer, you know, who's looking into what's going on.
But I mean, I think all that we did was we made him an offer, and that normally takes a little time to do. He, from what I understand, is I think he just received that offer, like, I don't want to say 36 hours ago, but we're waiting on his response so that then we can then send it to the state to get their approval, to get it to the county, to get their approval before we can formally accept it. Like, that's like that whole process type thing that I wish we didn't have to do.
But it's always been that you don't have to let the public know specifically what the contract
We didn't let
before it gets
we didn't let
approved?
the public know when we offered Dr. O'Malley a contract renewal. We didn't let the public know what the terms were that came back from the state when it was rejected or accepted. We didn't let the public know what we were doing when we were going to send that forward a second time. So no, not until it's actually, because until that happens, it's an offer. It's just something that's up in the air. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, the thing is that if we disclose it and if we get rejected, right, then what's the point, right? You know, we're gonna disclose it after it's approved. So the process is that they're gonna get a state approval first, then it'll go to the county superintendent for approval. Once the county superintendent approves it, yeah, then we'll post it.
Okay, but is this, I'm just curious because I don't know, is this something that even like the contract, even like last month, we should have been told that, you know, yes, we're going to appoint him until this negotiating went back and forth with the county and the state? Is that normal place to do?
So I can answer that. Yeah, that's the normal procedure. There are many different avenues that a public board can take. One is to choose an individual and then authorize council to negotiate the contract. Sometimes it doesn't work out between the board and you never proceed to another step, and before you disclose publicly all of those terms and conditions from a negotiating standpoint, you would want to keep as many of those private. There are different options a board can take, but this is all perfectly legal and within the procedures.
Okay, thank you for enlightening me. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes.
Matt Revnack, First Vice President, ETA, 2 Ethel Road. We're approximately 1 month into our new medical insurance. You know, and not unexpectedly, there's been some, stumbling blocks along the way. Some of the things have been worked out. I know, speaking to Mr. Mashad, and he's been dealing with a lot of issues as well. We also have a health benefits chair as ETA who's been wonderful for us. But there still seems to be a lot of issues, particularly with the prescription program. And some of them, again, have been worked out. Others are looming. I know Mr. Mashad received 3 emails from one individual who wants to meet with him because of a response from Cigna, which is not equal or better. And I have been actually asking since June for a meeting based off the health club gym membership that Cigna does not offer that Horizon did have, called the Horizon Be Fit program. I was basically told, in fact, we were actually told at the first session that was presented from Cigna that there'll be a meeting set up, and I have sent a number of emails asking for that meeting and included all people involved, Mr. Michaud and Mr. Pepe, the Custodians Association. I talked to facilities president at one of the sessions, and again, that meeting hasn't happened almost 2 months later. So I'm asking that the administration and the board do something to push this forward, because quite honestly, the end of July now, Horizon Be Fit's reimbursement program pays for going to the gym 12 times a month, and it's paid after the month, of course, you're reimbursed the amount. Cigna does not have that, and that was not actually explained that way when it was presented that night, because I asked a question about it in front of the board. They have a separate type of program, which is really for more of the high-end type of club memberships. And basically, quite honestly, I'm waiting for the first person that's going to contact me that wants to file a grievance on it. I'd rather get it settled before we go that route. And my understanding with dealing with the lady from Cigna is that this meeting would happen, and we're at the end of the first month. And by the way, everybody that was part of Horizon Be Fit has received an email from Horizon telling us that since we are no longer covered, we are no longer part of their program. So people are starting to come forward now and questioning about that. So I'm asking that these types of meetings, if necessary, do occur, because again, it's something which if we can resolve it without having to go the other route, I know I prefer to do personally. And I know Mr. Michaud has been overwhelmed as well with issues. As he told me, he's having, taken away from his finalizing his, closing his books and everything else because he's been having to deal with all these issues that have been coming up. And like I said, we've been dealing with it the same way. So, as I've been explaining to people, anytime you make a transition, there's going to be some hurdles that you're going to have to jump, and there's going to be some kinks in the transition. But we're a month into it now. And there are people that have literally had to either, put off surgeries to be done, prescriptions where they need their meds and they're not getting them. They're not getting them the way they used to be. And, it's when you're on these types of things, it's pretty, upsetting to people. So I'm just asking that again, somehow either this meeting be set up or somehow this be remedied. Thank you.
Matt, can I just ask you for one favor?
Sure.
We're aware that there are issues. We understand that most have all been worked out. Some people have actually emailed us directly on an email and have spoken about their issues, and we just follow it on an email chain. Mm-hmm. And while they sounded like they were like couldn't be worked out, like this, kind of sounds like it's something like they're not willing to work with you or make it. It all worked out at the end of the day. So if it comes up and we have these issues and the real issues, and you see us on these emails, we can follow them as opposed to you coming to us like a month or 2 months later saying, you know what, we can't work out a gym membership. Because when we sit down, we ask these questions, of them just to make sure they're working on them. And I'm sure they work on them in order of priority. You know what I mean? If somebody has like a medical procedure, they're working on that, not on the gym membership.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I would understand that as a response, but.
And I do agree. In fact, one of the emails I did send to Lauren she's a transition person from Cigna, I actually specified that, listen, I understand things like surgeries take precedent over gym membership, for example. But when you have people now starting, and yes, I agree, many of the issues, especially with the medical itself, coverage and things like that, have been rectified. We're having more of an issue now with some of the prescription situations. And again, the other outlying one now is that gym membership thing. And when you have people now, like the one gentleman emailed me, he says, my wife and I both do it, that's $480 a year. If they're not going to cover it the same way I'm putting out of pocket, how is that equal or better? It's not. So, all we're asking for, again, is a meeting. Now, even if they say, listen, we would like to meet with you, but this is like the date. In fact, one of the emails said, will you arrange it? I don't have access to everyone. I don't know who they want in the meeting. I do agree that it should be the leadership of ETA. the leadership of the custodians, the leadership of the facility managers, obviously administrators of Mr. Mashad and Mr. Pepe. I'm assuming Cynthia Doherty, who's our health benefits person. I don't even know if they would want, or a board member would, or two would have to sit on that. So my thing, and of course, I'm not working on their schedule, so I don't know what their availability is. So my response to Lauren was, why don't you or the broker set up that meeting, and we'll work our schedules around that, because, you know, quite honestly, we don't all work during the summer. So I know I personally have more flexibility. They may not. So again, many of the issues have been addressed, and, you know, while it's been a tough road, but, you know, we do, and I did personally in email thank Lauren, for example. She's been wonderful. You know, again, speaking to Mr. Mashad and all, I know what they've been dealing with as well. But there are some other outstanding issues, and we are a month into this now. And when people are dealing with prescription issues and you know, again, this gym membership, which the first time they're going to start getting a bill now when they're not reimbursed, we're going to be dealing with it. You know, and that's why I like to get this set up and rectified in advance.
All right, I just asked you if you could just CC us, just so we have, just so we're aware.
Okay, so you done with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Matt,
So,
I just
yeah, go ahead.
I remember we asked that question. I asked that question about gym membership to Cigna people specifically, because I'm a big sports advocate, and they said they have a $25 like copay monthly pay, and there's a list of gym that on their website you can sign up.
First of all, the list is let me explain. The list is very limited. There's only, I believe, about 8 gyms, and most of
I
them
asked
are.
them about YMCA. They said.
Well, the YMCA in Edison is not covered, for example. Okay, so our people that live in Edison have to go to East Brunswick, and they don't have the same facilities in East Brunswick. They don't have a swimming pool, for example. So there's specifics about the program. The other thing is those cover more the high-end gyms. The gym, and as I said, it's a benefit to you if you're paying $45 or more for the gym, because now you're paying $25 for the membership, where before you would have paid $45 and got reimbursed at $20. It would have been a break even. Most of our people, including myself, I went to Retro Fitness for years. When Retro Fitness by me closed down, I went to Manalapan Health Club, which was $20 a month. So basically, by me going 12 times a month, I'm not paying anything. It was being reimbursed to me. That's not the case. I'm paying now, why would I ever pay $25 for a membership to go to a $20 a month gym? But now I'm not getting reimbursed at $20 per month either. So, you know, Cigna's pushes on maintaining health and being healthy, quite honestly, I know because I've been using it. I went to my cardiologist today and he told me I was a poster child for success based off of doing what I've been doing with the gym and watching what I'm doing. It's not, sort of goes against what, you know, we want our people to do. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to say that the programs are 2 different programs. So we have been in contact with our with Dan and Rich to find out what our issues are. Majority of my understanding, because I just sent them an email very recently, and I want all the issues to be outlined. To me, the ones that I received so far, they have been all addressed. Some of the issues that if you have someone who's having issues with surgery, they're not being scheduled, please send me a personal email. I'm going to take care of it. Okay? All right, so based on what the information they have, a lot of things has been taken care of. Yes, I know gym memberships. This is an issue since day one when they actually had the meeting. Yeah, we are 1 month into the new health plan, but we have a lot of issues with data transfers and with all the other stuff. So I'm pretty sure the gym membership is not their first priority. Their first priority is get the drug coverage, get the surgery, you know, scheduled, get all the coverage for the 26-year-old that you know still want on the plan to be covered. And there's also, you also heard there is a $100,000 health grant that you can use it. So maybe something that you can work out with Cigna to use that money or whatever. But when you talk about equal or better, there are certain things that's negotiated, there are certain things that are not negotiated, right? There are certain things that the insurance company will throw in for free. I'm not sure that falls into the category of equal or better. So all those things we can discuss, but you know, just keep that in mind. So some of the things that insurance company was throwing something for for free just to get some additional benefits. I don't know if that's part of equal or better. And I'm not sure that's part of the negotiated contract. So that's just the point I want to point out. So
I just wanted to make a comment about Mr. Brescher. Although Jeff Bowden, ETA President, 2 Ethel Road, a lot of this information is really sensitive in the emails. Some of it's bordering and has surpassed HIPAA, so it's not something that I or some of the people that are working on these things would just naturally forward to just anybody. Certainly, you know, if a person's having an issue, we could mention a name, but some of these conversations in email to the Cigna people are getting very specific about treatments and such. And, you know, Judy McQuillan's been our health benefits person on ETA, and in Cindy Doherty's absence during August and, or July actually, she's been great for these people. But again, information's passed me that's very sensitive, and I just couldn't naturally forward that without, you know, person having a written, you know, approval that we could send that information to anybody else.
All right, well, all I'm saying is, right, if you have an issue like that, if somehow you can get it, because without us knowing, and without us having any knowledge, there is no way that we can help rectify it, except to have you come up here and speak and tell us that you want to file a grievance, which to me looks like...
No, I don't want to file a grievance.
Right, but
I want to rectify it.
my point is right, but I mean, I'm saying if this comes up before and we get made aware of it, these things, then we can help.
So the major topics obviously are the gym membership. That's a critical one. We don't know how large of a topic it is because, again, we would have to survey our membership to see who's doing what.
No, we do know. There's about 400 people is what Cigna told us.
Okay.
That use the gym membership. They got that through Horizon.
But does that include the children? And,
That included everything.
Okay.
400 people.
So that's one of the issues. The other general issue is prescriptions now that are considered over the counter. That is a big discrepancy where people under Horizon were getting a certain number of pills or a certain variety of pills that now Cigna's saying that you can purchase that over the counter, which means basically a big increase per month in the dollar putting out. So those are two main issues that I keep hearing about that could probably, you know, be rectified with a meeting. And I think that's all that Matt was asking for, is that we were promised a meeting back on the inception. And although Cigna may be very busy, and although, you know, we have 1,600 of our members plus an additional 700 going into this, and we're just trying to make sure that before it gets rooted, we have equal or better. Thank you.
Can I just add real quick? Sorry.
I think we're exceeded our time.
One of the requests for the meeting was actually we thought would save time, so that we don't keep seeing these things reoccur. That we can sit down with a side by side and let's compare and say, okay, these are the issues and the differences. Now, how are we going to rectify them? Rather than this constant email back and forth, you know, we actually sat down and took care of it. All right.
Yes, we got it. So we'll contact them to see if we can get certain things set up. Okay. And you know, of course, we want to try to resolve all these issues as much as we can. And you know, very recently I just sent an email to Rich Pepe. I want him to outline all the issues. So I'm aware of some of them, but I didn't see anything about surgery not being scheduled. I don't see any of those. So if you actually have someone that they're not working on it, just let us know. So we'll push for it. Okay. All right. So next was yes, Maria.
Hi, Maria Orchid, 83 Jefferson. I have two questions. My first question is the follow-up for the overcrowded meeting. Do we have a plan in place coming up to address that issue?
There will be a report that's coming up.
And my second question is, the council passed a resolution on Wednesday about the 8 allergies, and I was asking, how is Chartwell's going to implement this when the kids go back to school in September? Will the parents see the list or menu items that would contain allergies?
This is just past this past
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yes.
So we need some time to think to implement it. So if this is something that required by the town, that everybody in the town does it, and we'll follow the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, John.
John Kelly, President, EPSCMA. I'd just like to thank the board for overwhelmingly ratifying our contract tonight, as our membership did. Thank you for your hard work. Working across the table from us this time was a pleasure. And I'd just like to say, we disagreed on some issues, some strenuously, but we disagreed agreeably, and that's the way it should go. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple of years.
Well, 3 years. 3 years. Well, it's three meetings better than 3 years, right?
My age, 3 years goes very fast.
All right. Any other public comments? Yes. Who?
Hi, Board of Education.
Name,
members,
name, address,
citizens.
6 minutes.
Patel 7 Julie Drive. Patel 7 Julie Drive. Hey, I was at the last meeting, June 18, on a very hot day. Hot in many ways. But hey, my issue was concerning the safety and also the rules you have for, when you subscribe to transportation. Obviously, you get, if you live more than 2 miles or 2 miles, you get courtesy of bus service. If you live less than that, you have to subscribe to that service. Now, I'm just, I had a request that you may revise that, and I mentioned that last time too, that taking into consideration the hazards on the way going there, getting there. So I have my daughter is in middle school, John Adams, and my son is in MLK. But mainly my concern is by my daughter. We live 1.8 miles. And school starts at 8:20, about, John Adams. And during that time, she would have to go from Julie Drive, past Inman Avenue, which is nowadays a very busy road. There is no cross guards at that time. Then she has to go through, because this 1.8 mile is based on the shortest route, really. And that's why she's not getting courtesy bus service. So she would have to cross through the railway tracks past Tringley. Now, Tingley Lane has sidewalks for a certain amount, but after that, there's no path, there are no sidewalks going past that. Obviously, it's unguarded. And then she would have to go up Tingley, which is also a busy road, and pass and go to Bishop R, which is also busy because there's a private Bishop R High School there. So I'm just trying to figure out what I need to do. And I think I shouldn't be held hostage because of, 1.8 mile, I'm not meeting the criteria. But here, the safety is at stake here. Is there a price on safety? Or should I really have to pay for that?
You done with the question?
What's the
what?
There was also a revised policy 18A 39-1.5 adoption of policy regarding transportation of students who walk along hazardous routes. So I just wanted to ask the Board of Education, why aren't we not agreeing to this to allow the courtesy busing for these kind of situations?
All right, so we have the bus transportation committee chair here, so you want to address some of this issue?
Can I just say something before that?
Yeah.
I just want to mention that
I can answer.
I also have 2 kids going to Edison Township schools, and I live 1.9 miles away. The cutoff is 2 miles, right? Mm-hmm. So, but I think you should get subscription busing
Subscription, yes, that's what we have to
But
pay for.
we have to pay
But do you also go through the railroads and all of that,
Yes,
safety
yes, we
hazards
do,
and stuff?
we do,
So I just don't understand why Board of Education is not following the adoption of policy regarding transportation of students who walk along the hazardous route. Why isn't a courtesy busing provided for these kind of situations?
I'm good. Dan, can you answer this one about the hazardous, because.
I'm not sure what the date
that's-
of that policy is, but we used to have a policy for hazardous busing. We used to talk about kids who had to cross Route 1, and there was some specifics about what was hazardous. However, what happened when we took a big cut in our state aid back in 2010, we had to cut back, and one of the things we had to cut back to, because the hazardous busing wasn't by state law. We did that as a courtesy to the parents, because we didn't want the kids to have to walk a hazardous route. But the state makes a mandatory, and they don't. The state does not differentiate between hazardous routes. They go strictly by 2 miles, shortest route from door to door, from the school to the home. So what we did at that point in time, we started up a hazardous busing. I mean, the subscription busing program for those parents who didn't want to have their students walking up to 2 miles. And I wouldn't want my student to do the same thing. Yep. However, if we started to transport all the students that are going to be crossing major highways, which we have hundreds of them in town, railroad tracks, we'd be transporting probably another 1,000 kids. We already transport 13,000 kids now. And it's costing me over $10 million. And that subscription busing cost of $500 is actually barely covering the cost of our program now, which in our new policy, which isn't the one you're looking at, says that it will not cost the taxpayers any money. It's got to be self-sustaining when we put this in place. And right now, it's really on the edge of not covering it, and the taxpayers have to pay part of it. So we're really looking at really evaluating that right now. But right now, 2 miles to the elementary and middle school, and 2.5 miles to the high school. We go by that strict. Those are strict numbers by the state. If the state changed it, we would. But the state does not mandate anything other than those. They call them remote students. 2 miles from the school is remote. Otherwise, it's non-remote, and they're considered walkers.
So if something happens to my child, you're going to be responsible for that?
We can't be responsible for students until we get to school.
Well, I can't
obviously.
drop her off. I can't let you want. She's supposed to walk there. Past Inman Avenue, 35 miles, 40 miles, 50 miles an hour. Cars go down there in the mornings.
Well, see, the policy, we can look into that about the hazardous busing, but we have two kinds of subscriptions, right? You have the one that's provided by the school district, which is within the 2.5 miles. Okay, so the other, if we have extra space, if they pass on the route, if we have extra space on that bus, we will open up those seats to the folks that they will pay us. We're going to put them out on a bus if we have open seats. But that based on the enrollment. Then the other one is subscription bus. It's just to address issues like what you have. For the kids who are within the radius. So we, the parents pay for the bus, but the number right now is probably 32 kids, right? If we have 32 kids, if you can get 32 kids on a bus, then we can contact the vendor to get a bus into the area. So if there's a need for bus, just sign up in the transportation department.
There's a cost for that, though.
Yes.
I think they already have a bus coming.
There is a cost for
There's
that.
a bus nearby coming.
Okay, they already have a bus.
So there you have a bus, okay? So that's the way it is. The law says that within 2 miles or 2.5 miles for the high school kids, the school needs to provide the bus. But within that radius, as a courtesy to the parents, we have a contractor bus to provide that service. But that needs to be sustainable, and that to be sustainable, we need 32 kids on the bus. So that's as simple as that. And $800, I think it was $800.
We only charge $500.
No, we only charge 5, but that's our problem, is that we need to increase that rate because.
No, but that's for the one we provide, but for the contractor.
Contracts will be about
$875. That's
money I don't have.
That's the money you don't have? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have to get to work too. One more thing, actually. MLK School, there are those, what do you call it? You have those speed limit signs, digital. They are never on. There's not even a sign in the middle that says state law yield to pedestrians. That's outside the school.
That is a township issue, and if it's on a public road, that's township stuff, and the school is only responsible for the thing that's within the school, area.
Okay, I just figured I mentioned.
Yeah, so if you wanted to bring that issue to the council, please do that, and it's a safety concern. I would recommend you to go to the council meeting and bring that up.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
And last thing, sorry, you look great up there in the ceremony, actually, by the way, sending those kids away to college and at the rec.
Oh, okay.
Awesome job.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, Mr. Baker.
Sorry, everybody, I know it's late.
That's all right. You want to be the last one?
Thanks, Acting Superintendent, they're beautiful. Brett Baker, 140 Grandview Avenue, Edison, New Jersey. My wife is very angry with me right now, so I'm going to try and get home early.
Yeah, go take care of the
Early. Just a quick question. I don't know if it's publicly able to be disclosed, but are the terms of the Mr. Hart settlement able to be shared now that it has been voted on?
You Oprah it.
Cool, great. I know what I'll be doing tomorrow.
Is that
Then a follow-up question, because I just didn't see it in the New
That's the
Jersey.
right answer?
That is technically correct.
Perfect. I just didn't see it in the New Jersey School Insurance Group overview, but does the board carry D&O insurance? Does the district carry directors and officers insurance? In other words, is the terms of this settlement being covered by directors and officers insurance, or is it being paid just sort of out of general fund?
That's insurance.
It's by the insurance.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure. I just didn't see it in the New Jersey SIG. I just didn't see it in the New Jersey SIG renewal, so I just wanted to make sure that we're carrying that. Cool.
Yes.
And that's it.
You
Cool.
were carrying directors and officers insurance.
Thank you. I'm just gonna stand here because I'm basically fantastic. No.
Any other public comments? No? All right, can I have a motion for the adjournment of the meeting? Mrs. Patel, second. Mr. Stefano. All in favor?
No, found it.
Oh, okay, you found the lead.
Oh,
All right, meeting adjourned.